Hello everyone, welcome once again. In the last session, we talked about how to generate solution using benchmarking and standardization as practices. Standardization is a very common method of generating solution in the industry across the organizations. And while benchmarking is also very common ways of generating solutions, and this can be seen in every aspect of life, not just in organization. In fact, in every aspect of life, where people have role models, they have idols, like I want to be like him or her, or someone they look up to. And so this is nothing but benchmarking, where you try to be like someone, you try to adopt some of the best practices or habits from someone's life. In your life you want to be like that. So this is nothing but the benchmarking. Typically you then follow a regime or a routine to be like that person. So that's how the organizations do. When they benchmark themselves against certain best practices, they follow a process to be like that practice which they wanted to adopt. Apart from that, now these are very common and standard ways of generating the solutions, or trying to find a solution of the problem. But then there is a very interesting and innovative way of generating and designing solutions, which is called as Edward de Bono's 6 thinking hats. So basically here we're talking about the creative thinking now. If you look into my screen, Dr. Edward de Bono developed a technique for helping teams to stay focused on creative problem solving by avoiding negativity and group arguments. Why is he saying this? Because in a brainstorming session you will see that's very common. People start arguing with each other, and sometimes people will start blaming each other, and then it might becomes a heated argument also at times. So Edward de Bono wanted to avoid this. I mean, this is unproductive, to be honest. So he wanted to avoid this entire thing happening. This technique is called the 6 thinking hats, which he developed, and it can be used to enhance the team creativity and evaluate ideas. This technique can be applied during solution or idea generation, and also assist in building consensus. So when we are doing a brainstorming session in the analyze phase, we can use this technique even there also. When we are in the improve phase, we can use this method to generate new solutions also. So we can use it in both the ways. Idea is to use this in a brainstorming session. This technique has been used worldwide in a variety of corporations. In fact, Dr. Edward de Bono used to hold separate workshops for organizations on how to do the brainstorming on these six types of thinking approaches. So to name these 6 types of thinking approaches, we shall go through all these 6 thinking approaches. I would spend some time here because that's very important. It's very different than what we see or read when it comes to developing a solution. So he talks about 6 different colors. Each color denotes a separate way of thinking. For example, white talks about neutral and objective ways of thinking. Black talks about be cautious and careful way of thinking. And green talks about creative and lateral thinking, innovative thinking. Red talks about being emotional and intuitive in your thinking approach, and yellow talks about be positive, hopeful, and very speculative about any idea that is given by someone. And blue talks about be in control, organized, right? More arranged. So that's what these are the 6 approaches. How do these approaches work? Let's look into the next slide here. In this slide you will see we are explaining each of them in like an overview, but we'll go through each of these ideas in a more detailed manner here. For example, the white hat. White hat means the team needs to consider only the data and information at hand. With white hat thinking, participants put aside proposals, arguments, and individual opinions and review only what information available or required. It happens pretty commonly in all the brainstorming sessions. Some people will say, I don't believe in assumptions. I don't believe in any happy thinking. I want the data. I want the facts and figures only. So that's a white hat thinking approach. Then the red hat, which says that let's talk about feeling and intuition about the subject without explanation or need for justification. The red hat helps team surface conflicts and air feelings openly without fear of retribution. So you talk about an idea that you think can be a very wild idea, and you strongly believe in it. You don't have any reason that why do you think it will work, or why do you think it's a great idea, but you just think, I just think great about it. It's just my feeling that people will like it. And you are free to express this idea in your brainstorming session. So that's a kind of environment we're talking here. But use of this hat encourages risk taking and right brain thinking. And of course, if you're talking about an idea that is very wild in nature, and so that means we are talking about some level of risk as well here. The next level, the next type of thinking is the black hat, which means caution and critical judgment. Using this hat helps teams avoid groupthink and proposing unrealistic solutions. So now, you see the red hat talks about wild ideas and black hat talks about be cautious in nature. So you see how these 6 hats work in tandem with each other. So well, you see in a brainstorming sessions that some people are talking about some ideas which may be wild in nature, which do you think are absolutely not feasible. So so you wear that hat and then say, okay, hold on, hold your horses. We need to think about it. We need to put some perspective around it. We can't be, be little fancy about the ideas here. But this hat should be used with caution so that creativity is not stifled. But if you always use this hat, then people will not be very comfortable voicing out what they think, the intuition kind of thing, or the creative thinking, or the wild ideas, which sometimes appear to be very successful as well. The blue hat is used for control of the brainstorming process. Now, sometimes you might see that people are going in any direction, a heated argument is happening, or an argument is happening, or we are not discussing anything, people have started talking personal stuff, and so that's when the blue hat comes in, and a moderator or facilitator needs to put the team on track and then say, guys, we are drifting away, let's talk what the actual objective is, or let's talk from the last point where we were at. So that's very important for any kind of discussion so that we can make the best use of the time given. So it's the control of the brainstorming process. This hat helps team evaluate the thinking style and determine it if it is appropriate. This hat allows member to ask for summaries and help the team progress when it appears to be off track. It is useful for thinking about thinking. Sometimes some languages, some words, some approaches may not be right, and that's when the blue hat as a thinking approach helps it. The green hat. Green hat makes time and space available for creative thinking. Red hat is very creative thinking. Green hat makes time available for the creative thinking. So what it does, when in use, the team is encouraged to use divergent thinking and explore alternative ideas or options. So we say like that. So now we shall use the next 5 minutes to think something which is absolutely wild, absolutely innovative in the nature. So that's called the green hat here. So we should use a green hat to encourage people, and when people start talking wild ideas, that's when they are using the red hat. Red hat is to talk about the wild ideas. Green hat is to give them space to think about those wild ideas. Yellow hat is for optimism and a positive view of things. When this hat is in use, teams look at the logical benefits of the proposal. Every green hat idea observes some yellow hat attention. In fact, green hat gives space, red hat talks about the intuition, wild ideas. That's when the yellow hat comes in scene. Whichever idea is being given by the people, we need to ensure that we look at it from an optimistic point of view and not always ask for data. If somebody is talking about a wild idea, obviously there would be no data available. So when people are asking for data all the time, that means they're talking about the white hat. They are talking about a white hat approach towards it. So optimism is very much required when a brainstorming is happening, and that's when we start respecting each other's ideas as well. So these are 6 different thinking approaches when we are in a brainstorming session here. So let's try to understand these ideas or approaches even more in a more detailed manner. So the method 1, if you can see on my screen, it says everyone has a different hat, wherein a thinker puts on or takes off one of the hats. We believe that everyone who is there in the brainstorming session will either put on a hat or he'll take off a hat. A facilitator asks a thinker to put on or take off one of the hats, or the facilitator will say, I think we need to discuss some of the, now let's talk about some lateral ideas. I think we need to be very speculative. I think we need to be little cautious. So when the moderator is asking everyone to use a different way of thinking, that's when the moderator is making them think in a different way or making them wear a hat. Or we can say all thinkers put on one hat for a period of time. So that's again the job of a moderator. each thinker is assigned a different hat to wear for a period of time, or the moderator can say it like that. Okay, so I will make 3 groups. One group will talk only about data-based approach, one group will talk about only the wild and very optimistic way of thinking, and third group will talk about will be the devil's advocate, which will evaluate both of the ideas, being very cautious about. So that's how moderator can make different groups and ask them to think differently about each ideas. And all thinkers wear hats they do not normally wear, or people come with people start behaving differently when they're in a brainstorming session. So that's a typical option 1. And let's talk about the option 2 or the method 2, wherein it's very simple, wherein the facilitator will wear the blue hat, and blue hat means the hat of control, and you'll ask people, now you have to think in this manner, or you have to think in this manner. So that's a typical assumption, and that is one. Second is everyone is wearing the same hat. That's what facilitator says. Everyone will wear the same hat, and facilitator can be free of thinking in a different or in any manner. So these are the 2 methods of how to use the 6 thinking hats of Edward de Bono. Now this is a very, very interesting and a different approach while we look at the brainstorming or creative thinking approach. Creative thinking, people say there are different methods of doing a creative thinking, but according to me, Edward de Bono's 6 thinking hats really helps you to think differently, behave differently while you are in a brainstorming session. So if you have to get the best out of a brainstorming session, that's the best method which we should definitely use when team is sitting in it. And 6 thinking hat can really ensure that people who are part of the brainstorming session, they can get the best out of them, their potential can be realized, the effectiveness, time can be best used. When the 70-80% of the entire Lean Six Sigma training or the project is based on the brainstorming only, so then let the brainstorming take place in the best possible manner. The time should be utilized best, people should be able to realize their potential, their voices should be heard, discussed in a manner, and they should be able to understand what is called creative thinking, and let the creative juices of people come out in the best possible manner. That's where Edward de Bono's 6 thinking hat as a method really help us to understand this. So that's about Edward de Bono's 6 thinking hats. In the next session, we'll look at other solution generation technique, which is very famous again, called mistake proofing. So let's look into that into next session. Thank you for watching. This is Shivendra Sharma.